This episode of An Animated Discussion deals with the very serious issue of domestic abuse. Statistically speaking, that's something you may have experienced. Take good care and sit this one out if you need to. You're listening in on an animated discussion about Batman the Animated Series with two experts in their fields. I'm Joshua Unruh, superhero scholar.
And I'm Caleb Masters, your friendly neighborhood film critic from the Cinematropolis.com. And today, our topic is Season 2, Episode 28, Harley and Ivy.
Caleb, first, let's welcome back to the studio Alexandra Bohannon.
Well, hello there. I'm your normie person that really likes Batman, but not as much or know as much as you guys.
Hey, but it was prophesized that you would return to us. And
That's true.
And here you are.
Here I am.
And I think you are the perfect person to come in and talk to us about this
About
episode.
lady stuff.
But honestly, about lady stuff, but also about this episode that launched 1,000 ships.
Oh yeah.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of ships.
Yes, because we're going to talk about Harley and Ivy, who had never been paired before this episode.
That's kind of mind-blowing. I mean, first you got Harley Quinn starting in this universe, like starting the whole thing. Like, that's mind-blowing if you don't even know that fact. But then the fact that they'd never been in the same scene together until now.
I mean, it's cool, though, because this is still, it took them a good season to figure out what to do with Harley, right? Like,
Yeah,
as a more
definitely.
recurring thing, because originally she was really just a stand-in for, you know, a
She's
crony.
a more interesting henchman.
Right.
Totes.
Right. But see, now they're getting to the point like, hey, what's some cool stuff we can do? And they're like, I'm sure with Paul Dini in the room, they're just like, what if we put Harley and Ivy together? What would happen?
It's a great pull, but not necessarily one that would sort of spring whole cloth. It's not an obvious. It's not one of those ideas that you're like, oh, well, of course, this was inevitable that it would happen. It's more like your peanut butter and chocolate, right? Like we put them together to see how it worked, and oh my God, it's way over the top.
It's pretty
And
great.
I think you can even see that in the title card to a certain extent.
Yeah, absolutely.
The ridiculous contrast and clash of color patterns.
It's a big clash that still kind of works without becoming Christmassy.
Right.
Yeah, I don't read Christmas on initial concept. I know there's a whole thing with the whole pun, I guess, on Harley and Ivy, Holly and Ivy, which is derivative in Christmas type English lore, but it doesn't read instantaneously Christmas to me. It just, the whole idea of complementary colors bleeding into each other, that they complete each other.
100%.
Yeah.
I would say without losing the distinctive parts of their look, because there's a part of Harley's diamond pattern that works in there that isn't distracting, but it's also not front and center.
Exactly.
And same thing with the lighter greens and darker greens of Poison Ivy, that again, it's there, it's all through there, but it doesn't, no one part of it draws you to that one part. It's all of a piece.
Yeah.
And I actually really approve of the script that they use on this title, because
Yeah.
The cursive,
it's very romance novel.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
it's very
yeah.
girly.
Oh, yeah.
Curly Q. I mean, you know, we are doing a thing, you guys, and we knew from the title card. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we want to jump right into that sexual, the tension?
It's gay, folks. That's what it is.
Okay.
It's gay, folks.
Okay. I feel like, see if you guys come along with me on this. I feel like
Ready.
broadly, this episode falls into two major components.
Yes.
And if there's a problem with it, it's that the show winds up spending more time on one of those components than at least the three people in this room would prefer. Okay? Those two components are, to me, one, the fragility of Joker's ego.
Yes.
Concur.
Which is interesting.
Yes.
But
I have things to say about this.
It eats up a little too much of the screen time that we would rather see the other component, the new queens of crime.
Yeah,
Right.
the gal palling about, doing their thing,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
robbing all
totally.
the banks.
I mean, I like that it just doesn't come out of nowhere. They set up the fact that Joker is alienating Harley. And,
Yes.
and he's doing it in sort of the most textbook, take advantage of your significant other ways, right? But then it just comes back at the end and we don't want it, right?
There's a moment, and I noticed this too, actually. And yes, I actually noted this myself. There's a moment at the end of the episode where you shift perspectives back to because it goes back to the Joker Batman, where the Joker is like unloading his machine gun. It's like, I mean, this
Where
isn't
did
bad.
Harley and Ivy go?
I was like, this isn't bad, but this wasn't really who I thought the story was about.
That's okay. They get to go garden together at the end. I was like,
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I'll say this
Gardening
could
gals.
easily have been sort of a Chris Carter X-Files thing where they realized that they were doing something but didn't realize how well they were doing it. Like, we vibed to a different thing than the creators did. They thought that they needed to bring it back to a Joker story to kind of put a pin on it.
Yeah.
But then in the process, I mean, I'm not even blaming them. Like, I could see how that would
I get
happen.
you.
But in the process, we're sitting there watching it going, we don't care.
Yeah.
We want to watch more of Harley and Ivy.
Listen, there are, and I think this is an episode that touches on a lot of things, doesn't really go super, super deep, but we're going to get our Harley, Joker, fragile ego, all that stuff in a future episodes. And it touches on it here. And this is the first time it touches on it, I think, in a meaningful way, but we don't go all the way with it. So I'd rather them just focus on the Harley and Ivy thing because we haven't seen that before, and we're not going to get. I mean, they do team back up later, but it's not like this is like the the air quotes origin story of their romance.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's the thing. It really is super gay.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
In the best possible
In my
way.
favorite way
Is
ever.
this- okay. So, question: is this intentionally? Did Denny? Did he intentionally write it that way? Did they intentionally frame it this way? Or is this totally a Nightmare on Elm Street 2 part thing where the people who wrote it swear up and down it's not gay, but when you watch it, you're like, oh no, this is hella gay, guys.
Alexandra, what do you think?
Okay, so because here's the thing, the script, okay, the literal text, the words they're saying, right? Nothing there kind of reads.
Right,
It can all be.
right.
It can kind of go that way, but it's enhanced so much by the visual,
By the visual, and then the performances too?
Yeah,
Right.
So
yeah.
it's
Harley, when they're hanging out at the house, Harley with no pants on, button down shirt.
she's also wearing like just a giant T-shirt,
Right.
But
yeah, Ivy's in a giant T-shirt,
Yeah.
and Harley's in
like a button up. This is like
visual language.
This is visual language that said we just done did it.
More to that point, whenever I joke about that,
Yeah.
I always say, and that's the point where the camera fades to black, and when it fades back up, the woman is wearing his shirt and making eggs.
Exactly.
Yep,
They
That is
are
the-
literally
doing
making
that.
dinner.
Yep.
Yes. They
When
live
they come
together.
back.
Harley makes breakfast dinner for her, like eggs
Yeah.
and everything. Yeah.
So the joke that I make about those things from those old movies becomes the thing they actually did. I would say Paul Dini was doing every single thing he felt like he could do on an early 90s cartoon.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. I think context is important here, right? Mm-hmm. Because right now in 2018, we're reading this and we're like, oh my God, SOS. There's no way this is not a gay subtext.
Yeah.
Or even text.
Yeah.
Text. But in 1993, 94 era, I think there's the
it's completely different.
It's different. It doesn't. People don't read things that way like we do now, or
I'll
they
say
don't
this.
know to read things that way.
Now, the Harley and Ivy relationship did make the move to comic books after Harley made the move to comic books. That's kind of its own problematic difficulty because the way that Harley entered the comic books was so inorganic compared to how she showed up in this animated series. So
Yeah.
there's kind of some weird fuzziness there. But I think that only made the move to comics because that's what every fan decided was going on. Because this is also burgeoning time of the internet. Fanfic's already been invented by female fans of Star Trek at this point, but this is when the internet lets that concept go big. We're going to see slash fiction exist in this online space because we're never going to see it in the actual canon.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And so I think it's this. I do feel like Paul Dini was doing a thing on this episode. Maybe just throwing the seeds out, pardon the pun, on a Poison Ivy episode, but just I think he still thought it was. We could probably find him and ask him, honestly. But I think he thought it was subtext.
Yeah.
Or at least a balloon. Like, if you guys want to do something with this, fine. But then the particular culture of the internet at the time and these woman fans who couldn't find a foothold other than to kind of make their own in their own space on their live journals or, right? Like, that's the time, right? Like, on your blog, on your live journal, on your MySpace page. I think it was a balloon that Dini floated that then fandom just blew up.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
That's what it broadly. I
mean,
looking at the whole thing, that's what it feels like. to me.
It seems. Oh boy, maybe I'm stepping on shaky grounds here, but it's kind of like the Harry Potter thing too, like where the writer like kind of plants seeds in the fan community, kind of takes it and becomes its own thing, right?
Yeah.
You know, the way
And maybe I don't want to. That's a controversial trail to go down. So I'm just thinking of like an analogy that would work
Yeah,
work
yeah.
better today.
Here's what I'm going to separate that and see what you guys think about why that's probably apples and oranges, but not apples and apples. Nobody expects a work-for-hire screenplay to push the sexual politics envelope on a Warner Brothers owned property that is specifically aimed at children in 1993.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that's why I feel like Paul Dini knew what he was doing and pushed it as far as he felt like he could. Maybe that's even why he circled it back around to Joker, because he wasn't sure how to do their story.
That's
better.
kind of.
This is different than somebody who is writing their own thing and can do whatever they want with it. If J.K. Rowling wanted gay people in her story, she could have put gay people in her story.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, because it was all off camera, Dumbledore, I've always thought Dumbledore is gay, and then the Grindelwald stuff is like, oh, that kind of makes a lot more sense now, but it's never, and that the gay is being subtracted from Fantastic Beasts 2, so it's like,
well, it's a more complicated piece is what I'm saying. And it shouldn't have been, because it was one creator with one vision. If she wanted it, she could have had it.
But to her credit, though, her credit, because I end up defending her a lot more than not, which is not the popular opinion apparently. Just generally, she wrote it at a time when I don't think gay characters would have been today. It flies, so that's a different conversation we're talking today. 2000, even 2001 though. I mean, yes, there are more people talking about it, but it's still not like a, hey, you want to sell your book, you put gay characters in it. You know what I mean? Like,
no,
it's
totally.
different.
But I think, okay, I don't want to turn this into a Harry Potter referendum per se, but I think by book 4, she could have done whatever the hell she wanted, right? I'm just saying it's a little different, that creative vision of I am working with a corporately owned property.
Right.
So I'm going to push it as far as I can.
Right. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Circle it back around to a Batman story.
yeah.
Yeah, because it does circle back to the Batman joke.
And the thing is, the best, this is where, as an avid fan fiction reader back in the day, that's where fan fiction and fan culture is can be at its best and most creative, is whenever a creator gives seeds that lead to ambiguity, and then that ambiguity can then be exploited in fan works.
Yes, right.
And you don't necessarily. This isn't like a referendum on diversity in media, because I want all of these different stories being told, but this guy could only do so much with what he had in 1993.
Sure. Right.
I love the fact that I don't have to go to fan fiction anymore to read or consume queer love stories, or people of different ethnicities and backgrounds having their time to shine. That's awesome. And that's amazing. And I love that. So, but for this time, that's all people have.
And for these characters, you're still not going to get a queer Batman or a queer Superman.
Right.
You're just not gonna.
Well, and also keep in mind too, you get Paul Dini pushing the envelope tube, and also the target demo for the show was still boys between the ages of probably 8 and 13.
Yeah.
So and that's why they're having to preface and end with Joker, who's an established, amazing boy villain that every little kid had at least one Joker shirt in their closet in the 90s. That is also the problem with executives, teachers. It's a pervasive thing across culture, is that girls will consume things that have male leads because that's just fine, because that's how also you get what option have they. But there was a stereotype that from me being in grade school to high school, I mean, it went throughout. I mean, of course, academia is different, but all my public schooling experience was catered to male students.
Yeah,
in terms of English lit, we read books that were only led by, we were reading Hatchet, Where the Red Fern Grows. This is middle school, middle school. I mean, we just kept reading books about boy protagonists. And in high school, there's this big joke about us always reading baseball books, because we read The Natural, then the one about the Jewish kids, then there's Hasidic and whatever. There's another book about Israel back in the 1940s, and it's another book that has baseball in it. We kept reading baseball books and wartime books with young adult male leads, because that's how teachers only felt that they could approach a male. They're they're not going to read girl books, i.e. books led with a female protagonist.
Literally the same book, but with a female protagonist.
Yeah.
Still not going to happen.
It's not going to
Which is one of the best parts about the post-2000 era is we've gotten some. I know I took a young adult lit class in college, and we actually read more books about young women than young men, or it was genre heavy, which I love. because it was because of how the education system worked. I was the same as you. It was like an entire new world of literature had been opened up. I was like, oh my God. I read young adult lit books about like eating disorders and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I never even thought about it like that.
Winter Girls is so good.
That was one of them. Yeah, that was one of the books. It was Winter Girls and Speak.
She's I love Laura Hales Anderson. But anyway, just the idea that circling back to Batman, if you're a boy in the 90s, you have to have it bookended with the Joker because otherwise it's a story about girls.
Boys don't want girl things.
Girls
they don't.
cuties.
Right. They're not going to buy girl action figures.
Yeah, this is super duper nonsense, obviously, and I think would have been at the time even. But as sort of a defense for this approach, up until Young Justice, which is canceled because girls liked it, and the executive wasn't sure what to do with that. That is a much shorter version of that story.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Honestly, that's basically what it boils down to.
And if we want to talk about, if we want to talk into demographics, there's a reason for that, and there's a reason there's been a huge shift in the last 30 years. It's because the target demo always up until literally the last 15 to 20 years is who has the spending power? The man, because the man goes to work, the man makes the money. So of course you're going to target young boys who are eventually going to have the jobs to make the money to buy the things, right?
Yeah.
And see that we've seen a huge shift in that, and that's why right now you're seeing you're seeing it right before, and it's super exciting time to be a film TV fan. There's just way more stories about you got to put women leads in these things. We have an all woman led Ocean's movie coming out this summer,
which I didn't know I wanted until it
happened.
Until
I saw it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And even studios and horror films we've got to have I remember at a talk I went to a couple of years ago, the guy said we want thrillers starring 20-something females. You know what I mean? That's the thing that the studios are really into right now. So I mean, it's great. It's awesome. But in the 90s, we were still and of course, big studios like Warner Brothers are very conservative with their dollars, and they always lean on what works. And still, I mean, we see this today even, but...
Okay, we're still seeing it. This is going to be a little crossover with my MCU podcast, Listen Up A-Holes, because this was the thing that I did not realize until we talked about Iron Man 3. Early drafts of the script, Maya Hansen was the villain.
Oh, wow.
This was changed at the script level because somebody said, we can't make a action figure out of her. Boys won't buy it.
Yep.
And I love how Rey just all over that, from Star Wars.
Well, right away, right? Yeah. So anyway,
I know it's a tangent. This is all tangential, but I think it's important to understand why Harley and Ivy are not featured in their own I mean, they are featured, but they're not. It's bookended with, we've got to bring it back to.
They have to circle it back to the Joker.
Right.
It also explains why they blew up so big. There was an audience primed and ready to see these things that are subtext under onion paper.
Exactly.
Just the barest sub of subtext.
Yeah. One thing, though, to defend the Joker approach, because I think you guys were talking about it earlier, how this is really the first time that we have this kind of hardcore Harley with the Joker, and how she's always been treated like a henchman before, just kind of casually, but now we see the extent of the Joker's abusive and tyrannical nature.
I would say we've never actually seen an abusive...
Not until this episode.
Not to Harley.
Yeah.
Not this intense. We don't see him quite strike her, but she does get kicked out of that. We see him get mad, and then the next thing shot is her being thrown into the mud, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had that.
So well, no, that was in this episode. He doesn't quite strike her, but it's just, it's
the cut with the, it's now they're wearing each other's shirts and making breakfast. That kind of cut.
So we've even had him be a little bit considerate of her in the Joker fish episode. She still had to eat the fish because they were on camera, but he later apologizes. He turns it into a joke, but it's the Joker. I mean, clearly there's no way that this relationship is ever a good one, right? But this is the first time that we really see it becoming...
It's so toxic, and he just treats her so poorly.
Yeah. So I have two opinions about why Harley can be such an amazing character and then not at the same time. So on my amazing character hat, I mean, we see the Joker being, chaotic and he's a bad guy, but it's all done in this kind of lens of lightheartedness, and he's lighter and campier. But I feel whenever you see the Joker, he's abusing a woman, and that kind of puts it in a lens of oh my God, he's not just a comically bad guy. He's a bad guy.
Oh no, he's actually a bad guy.
Giving him a henchman with a name, who also is a woman, Yeah, absolutely draws a huge bullseye on that.
And it shows, and I think that's important. Now, this isn't like okay hat is like, well, women shouldn't just be relegated to giving motivations for understanding why someone's an evildoer. Like, that's her only place in the story. Like, on paper, maybe, is that she's just serves to be abused to give the Joker kind of like that kind of more maniacal, evil, sinister tone. I don't approve. I don't think that's actually what's happening, but on paper, one can interpret it to be the case.
Yes. In fact, that's actually, I'll say that's a good thing that we haven't really seen that until the episode where it was literally the point.
Yeah.
Because she has not been used that way.
Right.
She is otherwise generally a respected member of the team in as much as anybody is.
Right.
But,
I mean,
this is the writer's room like going, well, first of all, we kind of caught lightning in a bottle with Harley Quinn, right? So we should do something with her. But this stuff with Joker's kind of a problem, right? Like, we should.
They had to know. Yeah, they knew.
They're grown-ups. They're not idiots.
Yeah.
Well, because even back in the 90s, abusive relationships were still not like cool. Like,
no, you got very special episodes about this.
Yes.
Your after-school specials and whatnot about. Now, it was usually more parent or authority figure to child.
Sure.
But still, we're talking about.
Well, domestic abuse was a known thing in the 90s. We're like, oh, it's not okay for men to treat their wives or girlfriends like
and
that.
I do think if we had to start and end with Joker, it probably ended in the best way it could have because she did not go back to him.
It's true.
She's gardening with Ivy in jail.
Gardening Gals, the spinoff.
Yeah. So it's just like, so if we had to start and end with, an abusive relationship, because that at its core, like my biggest capital B beef with the Harley Joker dynamic is that people in fan culture like get obsessed with Harley and Joker and it makes me feel gross and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And exemplify and like, be the Joker to my Harley. And
if
like,
you ever see,
whoa.
I mean, this is a very difficult definitive statement and I'm going to make it anyway. It's only difficult because it's definitive. Like, I'd stand by this.
Yeah.
If you are walking around with Joker and Harley as hashtag couple goals, change your lives.
Yeah.
Really think. It's like people who don't get it, like they don't get the thing they're like. No, you understand they're painting this like as a super toxic, unhealthy relationship, right?
And now here's where superhero stories kind of perpetuate that in a bad way.
Sure,
and it's the nature of the beast, but it's a thing that you should be aware of working in this stuff.
Yeah,
there is by and large a status quo that must be returned to, or you have to set a new one hard.
Yes.
You cannot set a new Harley and Ivy status quo as hard as you need to unless you make it clear that this is a romantic relationship, which we weren't in a place for in the mid-90s.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so by definition, by the way that superhero stories work, that there is a certain amount of reset that must happen all the time.
Yeah.
This remains true. All the 26 years later, I tweeted about this problem this morning in terms of Batman and Catwoman's in comics marriage.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, DC. This is not actually the first time this happened. This happened in 1977. Sorry. There's always a little bit of a return, and you cannot close the door on Harley and Joker as hard as you need to in this context.
Right.
And I think
to overcome the story inertia of superhero stories.
Right.
Sorry.
And I really like what you were saying there. That's awesome and leads into this next point. The idea that because of the nature also of 90s television and how this is not a heavily serialized television show, the fact that we are probably left with the best ending that a possible Harley and Ivy show in the 90s that's not serialized could have had, where the Joker is away from her in jail in a different jail cell and she's with Ivy gardening in jail.
Yes.
So the fact that it's off screen, they're both going to get out of jail. And then Ivy is going to be like, hey, girl, want to hang out? And she's like, oh, but I want to go. I'm going to go back to the Joker, my pudding or whatever. And then she does. And then we move forward and then we have like mad love and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. It works both ways because in the context of the episode, she's still separate from the Joker. And
that gives that fully arc. And it feels like maybe throughout the episode there was growth character.
Yeah. Right.
But it is able to return.
Yeah. But as you wait, because it leaves it open as she still misses Mr. J, right?
Yeah. So I think that's a really good, that is an amazing perspective to say that it is 100% okay for us to talk about the way that this episode falls short and the way that superhero storytelling as a whole falls short. And that there's been all this growth, but also Iron Man 3, which was not that long ago. Like, these are worthwhile conversations. It's also really important to say, within the context of these characters and that time and this format, literally the best possible episode we could have gotten.
Paul Dini knew what he was doing.
Yeah, that is
ridiculously competent.
Excellent.
Yeah,
10 out of 10 on this episode.
Good observation.
I'm saying.
So I want to throw before we wrap up. I do want to pose another question though, and of course the Harley and Joker dynamic. We have many episodes to talk about in the future.
Oh yeah, it doesn't get better.
But I wanted to
really
no.
Does he not learn to cherish, love, and respect her and not abuse her?
We actually do see him strike her proper in future episodes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so I want to follow up our cat and claw conversation, Joshua.
Okay.
And I'm actually glad Alexandra's here for this because this episode does some similar things, but it does it a little differently, and the messaging seems a little different. So I want to get you guys' take. I still feel like, and I know this is a 90s thing, oh my God, I can't believe girls are doing this.
Yeah.
Now, and it's a little heavy-handed, which I get at the time. And Joshua and I, we did Cat in the Claw last year, which is the Catwoman introduction, and it handled it pretty poorly, and it looks very dated. This one handles it differently because in this one, at least in this one, Batman says, man or woman, a sick mind is capable of anything, which is a lot different than Cat in the Claw, where he's like, oh, I can't believe a woman would be this good.
Yeah, that's like equal opportunity villainy.
Right.
Yeah, no, and that's actually one thing that I was actually surprised because I felt like I was getting led to a you guys are girls, but you're so evil kind of conversation. But no, I was like, well, butter my biscuit. That's really great.
No, it's particularly great in terms of Cat in the Claw.
Yeah. And also another thing, I'm kind of obsessed with My Hero Academia right now, but there's an episode.
High five.
Yeah.
I started watching it.
Yeah. And he knows, but there's an episode in season 2, and I won't spoil it, but there is a fight where a man and a woman fight in like a controlled way. And basically, there's actually uproar from the crowd of like, oh my God, he's taking it so hard on this woman. And the character in question says, I'm taking it hard on her because I respect her.
Yeah.
And I'm kicking her ass because I respect her.
And it's a character I would not expect to talk about respect at all, let alone
I think
in
I
this
know
particular.
I know you're talking
yeah,
about.
exactly.
Okay.
But it's an amazing point, and I think that also gets brought back to this discussion because it's like Batman respects people. So because Batman is a vigilante, he takes the law into his own hands and does things like that, but generally wants the bad guys to go to jail.
Yes, right. Yes.
That bad guys doesn't mean bad guys only. It's bad people.
Yeah,
and I feel like that is done well here.
No, it rang very hollow and not really true to the character when he did it in Cat in the Claw.
Yeah, it was weird.
Even in terms of 1993 and this very episode, it was like,
would Batman say that?
Doesn't really sound, because literally 4 or 5 episodes before that is when he had to deal with Poison Ivy.
Right.
And she damn near killed him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, that's a weird thing for you to say.
And I felt like some of the verbiage was similar in this episode, but the message was different. Like the equal opportunity cry fight. There was still that like, oh man, these girl power thing, which feels a little heavy. I don't know, Alex, did you feel like that was a little...
though. It's judged in terms of this episode.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's judged badly, whereas it was laid out as a reasonable reaction from Batman in the Cat in the Claw.
Definitely.
Whenever somebody does that, but they're girls, it's judged as bad. It's the Joker saying it.
Exactly.
Or it's a room full of... jerk
idiots.
Rich guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's exactly my point, is the fact that whenever the men are dunking on women, they're the bad guys.
Yeah.
You know.
Which was not the case. Which was not the case in the Cat in the Claw.
Yeah, it wasn't like hard the opposite direction in Cat in the Claw, but it was in the opposite direction in Cat in the Claw.
We didn't say that.
Up to the point of a bazooka being a reasonable response to catcallers.
Oh my God. Yes. That gave me life.
That was hilarious.
I was not expecting that, and boy howdy, that delivered. I didn't think that the quote overt girl power, I didn't feel like it was like more than what I felt like these over-the-top villainesses had going for them. They're over-the-top, larger-than-life ideas. Like, one lady can control plants, and one is just like this agent of chaos wearing a Harlequin outfit. Like, you can't...
What else are they going to do?
They're not going to be doing girl power with any kind of subtlety.
Right.
So...
Okay. Oh, no, you're good.
Not only is it judged from the negative, but... when Poison Ivy, who is also a villain for the purposes of this, says things about feminine empowerment,
right,
it judges that positively.
Right.
That's always in
right.
contrast to what the Joker is doing to Harley.
Right.
So even when it's coming out of Villainous's mouth, it's still judged positively.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, she's saying, look what we can do. You guys thought we were so weak. Look at this. We can own all
Every
your
time Joker
asses.
comes up, the answer is, well, you need a dose of female empowerment. And I'm like,
right. Yes.
Yeah.
It was great.
And one thing that I've always kind of appreciated with Harley Quinn's, I don't know, but Harley Quinn in the show, for the most part, I always feel like she's portrayed as having like really good ideas. And I mean, she gets Batman, like gets him, like catches his ass. Like, so she catches him, but yet it's because the Joker has this fragile male ego, it gets in the way. And he's like, of course, the tiny woman can't do anything with her tiny woman brain.
There's definitely
blah, blah,
a place
blah.
where they could do that story
well,
with these characters.
well, I mean,
they don't.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
no.
no. I mean, hanging a lampshade on it.
Oh,
like,
yeah, yeah.
like showing her diminishing herself with purpose to make him look better.
Right.
It's never. It does happen, but it's never overt. It's never made the point in the way that. These two ladies are the point of this.
But the fact that Harley is a better villain, I feel, than the Joker is in the show.
You need to watch, I mean, Mad Love is the next one you
definitely.
watch, because that does happen. She does catch Batman. She does have him beat, but then the Joker's like, I'm the only one who can do this.
Yeah.
Look, this joke's not even funny. He just tears her down when she succeeded. And then Batman's basically like, wahaha. She totally had me, and you like let me go because you're stupid.
Yeah.
It's that, yes. But even in the reason I say it the way I say it, in context of Mad Love, which we will get to at some point. But in the context of Mad Love, she's trying to prove her worthiness.
Right.
I'm saying that there's a really interesting story where, probably not to be had in 1993 on a children's cartoon.
Sure.
But the supervillain version of the girl outrunning the boy she likes and slowing down to let him win.
Mm-hmm.
But that we see that.
But we see the recognition that she's making herself smaller so that he can.
You never really get that. It happens some in the background, but they never lampshade it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Within the context of this really unhealthy relationship that should not be hashtagged couple goals, there's a lot of really interesting stories that could easily wind up with Harley choosing a different life with Ivy and never going back. And again, taking into context the need to sort of hit a reset button. Again, I agree. This is the best possible episode we could have gotten in the time, in the moment. But it hurts me a little bit that at the end she's talking wistfully she can get back together with the Joker.
Well, it does.
After she has blown up cat collars with a bazooka. Like, she gets it, but she doesn't get it with him.
Well, it's
which
different.
is realistic.
Right.
Yeah, the idea that you can be so blind to your hashtag couple goals partner, like that you don't see the literal black text on the page is they have never done anything for you. They continue to not do anything for you, and they actually diminish you as a person. And yet there's just that something about them.
Right. Well, again, it's realistic. That's the Stockholm syndrome. It's you love someone who is actually harming you, but for some reason, it's that connection's there and you can't shake it.
We want
her to not
Harley to outgrow that.
Self-actualization.
And the nature of this format and broadly superhero fiction just does not give that character the tools to outgrow it at the and that is dissatisfying to us.
Yeah. And that's the tragic parade style look at all of the plot at once narrative, is the fact that she will never probably escape that.
Well, and even if she does, there's a continuity reset on the horizon where she isn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that's part of
you always know it's inevitable.
So I think probably before we wrap up this episode, we can look at the end of the actual episode. What I am jokingly referring to as the Lord of the Rings ending. Because you have Harley and Ivy escaping and Ivy screaming to the night, "No man can stop us." And then Officer Renee Montoya
God. That was great. That was amazing. That was fantastic.
Is the one who shows up and stops them. And I really like that, but I'm gonna see what you guys think about. I wish in a way that this episode had come a little later in the Batman continuity, because Montoya is there at the beginning at the museum, but she kind of comes and goes. She's not really part of the story.
She's not a fully realized
If this
character
could
yet.
have been Batgirl walking alongside the whole story, I mean, I love Montoya, and I love that Montoya is also a BTAS character that crossed over to the comic books. I love all of that.
That's awesome.
And I like this ending. It's very much that I'm no man, kind of ending, and I love it. But I'm just like, oh, I wish she'd been around more. Like it would have paid off okay, but
the payoff wasn't as good.
If Batgirl had been there alongside Batman throughout his entire part of the thing, and she's the one who's
I'll do you one even better. Two options where it is just a Batgirl investigating this whole thing on her own,
yeah.
Solo Batgirl,
or if you want to get real Gotham-y, just have Renee Montoya be the person doing the detecting.
Sure. Batman the Animated Series has done more than one episode where Batman's barely in it.
Right.
Like we could have perched on the shoulder of Montoya this entire episode.
Yeah.
And it could have been pretty cool.
Now I call major shenanigans on Batman being in this episode at all. Because we already had too much. We already starting and ending the episode with Joker, like on a episode that's literally titled two female characters' names.
Yeah.
Is kind of just like a.
Well, and let's think. Batman hold on. Batman was at the beginning of the episode. That makes sense. But honestly, he doesn't come back for almost 2/3 of the episode, and he just shows up.
I'll reiterate.
Win the
Still
day.
probably the best possible episode from the context. But
Agreed.
if we had it to do all over again, knowing this show has done this before, sometimes with Montoya, where we barely even see Batman, it would have been really cool to see Montoya or a solo Batgirl or something like that be the one that stops them.
Like maybe at the beginning Batman still chases her, but then after that Batgirl says I can handle this.
Sorry, I just had to.
Nope, we're doing it. I think we're having the same thought.
I just fangirling over the idea that they chain up Batman with the tools of domestic slavery. This is a children's show.
Yes, that was amazing.
I'm like, what is this? Like some literary criticism of Margaret Atwood just thrown in casually. Like
it's true.
It's true.
Now this show has done this kind of thing
I love it.
before with other genre types, other literary types.
Yeah.
Not so much like this big feminist message before. So again, it's not unheard of for BTAS to pull this off.
I know.
Anyway,
I'm sorry. I just had to bring it up before it.
It's powerful, visual,
and
hilarious.
Whoa! It's just so cool.
Before we got to the end of our episode, I wanted to bring that up. The ending of the caper part of this episode. Right. That Montoya is the only person equipped.
No man can get us.
Yeah, that's right. No man can stop us.
And it's true.
It's true.
You are correct. Hi, I'm Officer Renee Montoya.
So obviously this is a watcher. We all say this is absolute must watcher from this thing. Batman the Animated Series. Before we wrap up, I always like to throw in these alternate media recommendations. So if you enjoyed Harley and Ivy episode, what are some other media you can consume? Movies, TV shows? Joshua, what do you have in store for the listeners today?
This is so on the money. I almost feel bad about it. Bound.
Oh, you know what? You know what one of my choices was? Bound.
It is.
Burn down the patriarchy.
Two women, one of whom I think more or less discovers that she is interested in ladies in the process of getting her life out from under a very bad man. And then the two ladies defraud the very bad man.
It's great.
It's basically Harley and Ivy without the costumes.
Yeah,
it
honestly,
really is. It's fantastic.
In fact, now I just want to do like the Bound fanfic that's rewritten as Harley and Ivy with Batman just failing utterly to catch them.
You have to pitch that somewhere. That would sell.
That's a fantastic. That's a piece.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No, that's perfect recommendations, Joshua. I was going to say that, but since you said that one, I'm going to talk about my other film that I picked about burning down the patriarchy, which is a lot more recently. It's called The Handmaiden, not to be confused with The Handmaiden's Tale, which is also
Handmaiden is really good.
Basically, it's set in a Japan-occupied Korea, and I don't know. It's about.
It seems like one you can't say anything else about.
Yeah,
you can't.
You can't. There are lesbian lovers, and it's about burning the patriarchy down in some very unexpected and shocking ways.
So historical piece about a queer relationship.
Yes, in a time when in a time and country where it was absolutely it didn't happen.
It's immediately going on my to-watch list.
Please, it's a 2016 film. It's from the same director who gave us the original Old Boy. Absolutely should check out The Handmaiden. It's an excellent film. It was one of my top 5 films of 2016. Yeah, it's so great. And it's all about women kicking all sorts of ass and outsmarting men. And yes.
No, that sounds perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Alexandra?
I have one. All right. My recommendation is Steven Universe, because I would argue and posit that that kind of show where it's like this isn't really subtext anymore, that a lot of these people are super gay, and like the subtext, not text, of like having sex and making love, and all these very like quote things that shouldn't be in a children's TV show, unquote, and this is like actually for adults. And then also the fact that they're all like vaguely superheroes with like superhero powers.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a little ashamed of myself. I was so pleased with myself for Bound.
I mean, Bound's a pretty good pull.
That I just
yeah, no, I'm
thinking,
glad that I was able to offer something else.
So let me throw one more on the pile that I know will be near and dear to the heart of Alexandra and myself.
I know what it is.
Because I think
what it is.
If Steven Universe fits, then Sailor Moon fits.
There it is.
Just as much.
Because I mean, I don't know if Joshua Unruh saw that my kitchen, there's a small shrine.
Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah, the only two pop figures of Sailor Moon characters I have, Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune, because that is the best, my favorite thing probably about Sailor Moon.
Yeah. They ship hard.
Oh no, that's text.
It's actual text.
Oh, it's actual text. Okay, good.
Literal,
That's actual text.
Literal gay text.
I will expound briefly upon the joy of queer romance in Sailor Moon, because you do really have a spectrum. And this, honestly, this circles back to this episode as we talk about how Harley is, we kind of breezed past this, but Harley is really figuring herself out in this episode.
Yeah, very much questioning sexuality.
Yeah, she's not sure who she's interested in on multiple levels, right? And one of them is, wait, again, this is subtextual, but am I interested in girls? Is a thing that is going on.
Yeah.
You have the spectrum of this in Sailor Moon from beginning to end. When Usagi meets each one of her new friends that turned out to be friends from a previous life that she's going to do superhero stuff with, she falls in love with each of them a little bit. She has a crush on every single one of these female friends. That kind of goes in the box because she tends towards boys, apparently. Like tends towards boys because her main love interest is a male. And she becomes friends with them instead of lovers. But I mean, she 100% has a crush on Amy because she's smart. On Rei because she's willful and strong. On Motoko because she is physically powerful. On Venus because she is legitimately the most beautiful woman in the world. Like all of this. So she is vaguely romantically interested in all these people. We get textual flash forwards to the future where these ladies wind up together. Those Sailor Senshi wind up together, and then at the far end in the outer Senshi we have actual textual, ongoing, loving, monogamous and parental lesbian couple.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Sailor Moon, but that sounds.
I love the outer planet so much. Like
almost none of that is the point of any of the stuff. Almost none. It is with Uranus and Neptune and daughter Pluto, kinda, right? Yeah. But by and large, this is all stuff we breeze past like it's no big deal because, guys, it's no big deal.
Right.
So, okay, you know what? Fine. I got another one. If we're gonna roll down the added on, then I've got to throw The Legend of Korra out there, which is a really great show about a character. They a lot of baits and switches. Is like, oh, love triangle, who she's gonna be with this season, yada, back and forth, and then she seems like she's not really interested in anybody, and then boom. She's into the guy. She's into the woman who dated her ex-boyfriend and was like the other piece of the triangle before. It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
It was the perfect thing.
Yeah, I feel like Avatar for me, probably of all Nickelodeon's offerings, I feel like Cartoon Network in terms of just in general, like their cartoon offerings are more risky. Like I feel like they do take more risks, but like Avatar was probably the biggest risk Nickelodeon ever took.
Right.
And it paid off dividends.
Right.
But I feel like it was also because they took the risk and that the characters in the show was so developed that also gave them the most for the fandom and like the fact that fan fiction, like there were a lot of really great gay pairings that came out of Avatar into fan fiction because that Avatar never touched on the gay ever.
No, but because they were only able to do that because of the overwhelming success of The Last Airbender, and then even The Legend of Korra, that's not like textual until it doesn't start to really show up. They tease it a little bit, but you don't like quite get there until season 3, where you're like, oh, I think it might be heading here. They're taking it there, and then you really don't find out for confirmed until the last episode. Oh, this is the thing. Like this is definitely a thing. Like outside of it being like kind of a tease. No, they're holding hands, walking into like this fantasy world. You know what I mean? Like it's very textual at the end. And also, don't give Nickelodeon too much credit there, because The Legend of Korra, the last season and a half, you had to watch on their online streaming service. It did not air on TV.
Yeah, because that's the thing is, like, again, they're more risk adverse, and also they have like a different market than I feel Cartoon Network does.
Right. Well, Cartoon Network's trying to get them ready for Adult Swim. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they've got the different demographics covered, and the way their programming works is different. And it wasn't just that. It was not just the gay relationship. It was also like the last season and a half got quite a bit more violent too, like brutal assassinations, and yeah. Anyway,
I think that's a really great place for us to wrap it up, because we just showed how different media is now than it was 26 years ago, just in the discussion of Steven Universe, of Korra. Sailor Moon is actually in Japan concurrent with this.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But it did have a 90s cartoon that was butchered to get rid of these things for Canada and United States.
Yeah.
But Crystal, a much more recent adaptation, just goes hard in the paint for all of this stuff.
That's what I was actually about to ask about Crystal, because I haven't seen. I don't think I've seen any of it.
Yes. So I mean, that's like an exceptionally hopeful note. I think we can, with honesty, say that PTAS gave us the best possible Harley and Ivy we could get
at the time
for 26 years ago, but it's different now.
It's like, look where we have,
and it's better
where we are now.
It's getting better, and we're on track. If we just keep going, it's going to keep getting better too. So,
I love being able to talk about media and like things that people like, especially superhero stuff, and end with a note of positivity and optimism.
Yay!
I agree. It's almost like it's intrinsic to the concept. Well, that about wraps up this animated discussion. Caleb, where can people go to continue the conversation with you?
Well, Joshua, you can always find me on Twitter talking about film, television, video games, and all sorts of other pop culture goodness at C Masters Talk. That's letter C Masters Talk. I'm also the editor-in-chief and film critic at the Cinematropolis, and we publish these in-depth essays on all types of different films, oftentimes including science fiction and superhero films, all the stuff you'd want to read about. And you can find all of these articles at thecinematropolis.com. Joshua, what about you?
I'm also most active on Twitter, where you can find me easily enough at Joshua Unruh. And remember that an animated discussion is a Pulp Diction Productions program and is 100% supported by listeners like you. To find out how you can keep this and our other shows in production, check out patreon.com/pulpdictionproductions.
Tune in to our next episode, where we head to the land of the rising sun and see Batman take on an old nemesis in Season 2, Episode 16, The Day of the Samurai.
Until next time, we'll see you back here. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Joshua, I just have one thing to say about this episode.
Do tell.
Rosebud.
I'm cutting all of that.
Thank you. The world thanks you.
There's Rosebud. It's the name of our car.
No, we're not doing it. I'm doing the intro on this one. We're cutting all of that. Are you ready?
Oh, you guys suck. Okay.